You know, for decades, we all thought of Florida as America's ultimate political battleground, right? A true swing state where a handful of votes could decide a whole presidential election. But that Florida is pretty much gone. Today, we're going to dig into how one of the biggest, most important swing states in the country was transformed so completely.
And that's the big question, isn't it? How did this happen so fast? I mean, was it just a gradual change in who lives there, or was something else going on? Something a little more deliberate, a little more engineered? The speed of this shift really suggests it wasn't just a political accident.
Well, the short answer is this. They built a machine, a really sophisticated, complex machine, designed specifically for our digital world. We're not talking about campaign rallies and yard signs anymore. This is a machine built to control the one thing that matters most, the flow of information itself.
So, to really get how this thing works, we're going to take it apart piece by piece. First, we'll look at the command center, the war room. Then we'll meet the soldiers on the ground, the digital shock troops. From there, we'll track the stealth delivery system they use, see the information bubble it creates, and then, finally, we'll connect all the dots, from a click online to actual political power in the real world.
Okay, first up, every machine needs a central nervous system, right? A command center. And in Florida's political world, that's the digital war room. Now, this isn't some physical room with people huddled over computers. It's a strategy. It's a rapid response operation designed to completely own the news cycle before it even gets started.
And this strategy really got its name from Governor Ron DeSantis' Rapid Response Director, Christina Pushaw. It's basically a form of digital combat. The whole idea is to completely bypass the traditional media, the newspapers, the TV news, and talk directly to this huge online army that's ready to mobilize at a moment's notice.
So how does it work in practice? Well, first, they just ignore the mainstream press. Second, they go straight to their followers on social media and get them to amplify a message. And third, and this part is absolutely key, they create a really hostile online environment for any journalist who dares to write something critical. We're talking floods of mentions, emails, the works. This lets them shape the story right from the get-go, making it almost impossible for a different viewpoint to get any air.
All right, so you've got the war room giving the orders. Now let's talk about the human element, the people who actually carry out those orders. These are the digital shock troops, the influencer network, and they are on the front lines of this information war, operating across a whole bunch of different platforms.
And what's so fascinating here is you can actually map out the different layers. You've got your top-level strategists like Christina Pushaw on platforms like X. Then, you have community mobilizers, guys like Alexander Otoyola on YouTube, who has this massive, dedicated following in the Cuban-American community. But you've also still got the traditional media gatekeepers like Ninoska Perez-Castillon on AM radio who reinforce the same message through older channels that people have trusted for decades. It's truly a full-spectrum attack.
Now, the message they're pushing is just so important. For the Hispanic communities in South Florida, especially for people who fled authoritarian countries, the messaging is incredibly specific and designed to be emotional. These influencers are constantly mixing classic anti-communist rhetoric with modern American politics, essentially framing any democratic policy as a slippery slope towards the very socialism that people escaped from.
And this brings us to what might be the machine's most clever and powerful part. The public stuff on social media is one thing, but a ton of the real work, the real opinion shaping, happens in private. It happens on encrypted apps like WhatsApp, where the normal rules and fact-checkers just can't reach.
And this lays out the process perfectly. It all starts with a simple, really powerful, and usually false message. That message gets dropped into a few big, trusted WhatsApp groups, like your family chat or a neighborhood group. And because it's coming from your aunt or your neighbor, you trust it, so you forward it. It spreads like wildfire, totally under the radar. And after a while, it's been shared so much that it jumps from WhatsApp into the public world. Suddenly you see it on Facebook or hear it on the radio, and by then it just feels like it's a well-known fact. And the content is so specific. For Venezuelan American groups, the messages might compare a mainstream American politician to the dictator Nicolas Maduro. For Colombian Americans, it might be a comparison to the leftist President Gustavo Petro. These messages are literally designed to trigger a deep, painful, traumatic memory, which makes them incredibly powerful and very, very hard to argue against with just facts.
So when you combine the digital war room, the influencer network, and that stealthy WhatsApp pipeline, what do you get? You get an incredibly powerful result, a nearly airtight information bubble, especially in a place like South Florida. It creates this echo chamber that basically insulates voters from any outside information.
And just look at how much things have changed. A decade ago, if you wanted to control the Spanish language narrative, you had to go through a few key gatekeepers on AM radio stations like Radio Mambi. But today, that control is spread out, decentralized across dozens of influencers and thousands of private group chats. The new system is way more resilient. And because so much of it is private and encrypted, it's almost totally immune to any kind of fact-checking.
Okay, so we've seen all the pieces of the machine, but what's the point of it all? This isn't just about winning arguments online for bragging rights. The real goal, the end game, is to turn all of that online activity into actual, real-world political power.
And I can't think of a better example of this than the ghost candidate scandal. I mean, this was a wild scheme. Political operatives, funded by untraceable dark money, went out and recruited fake independent candidates to run in super close state Senate races. These candidates did zero campaigning. Their only job was to be a name on the ballot, to confuse voters, and pull away just enough votes from the Democrat.
So let's look at a key race in Miami back in 2020 for Senate District 37. The Democrat lost to the Republican, and the final margin of victory was just 32 votes. Think about that for a second. 32 votes in a district with almost 500,000 people.
Okay, so the margin was 32 votes. Now, how many votes do you think that ghost candidate in the very same race got? Over 6,000. Now, look, it's impossible to know for sure who those 6,000 people would have voted for otherwise, but the impact is undeniable. You just need a tiny fraction of those votes to be peeled away to completely decide the outcome of the election.
And that's the whole point right there. This scandal shows you exactly how the whole system works together. The digital echo chamber creates the perfect environment, and then these real-world tactics, like ghost candidates paid for with dark money, can come in and exploit that environment to get the exact political result they want. It's a straight line from online chatter to a flipped seat in the state Senate.
And so this leaves us with one last really critical question. This incredibly effective, digitally powered machine was basically perfected in Florida, and it totally remade the state's politics. So the question we all have to ask ourselves now is, was this just a weird Florida story, or are we looking at the new playbook for politics all across the country?